You're listening to Conservation Connection. I'm Chance.
I'm Sarah Catherine.
We're a husband and wife team running an environmental education nonprofit that's focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week, here on Conservation Connection, we do just that by introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day across the globe.
We talk to professionals working to protect our planet and ask them about their career,
Their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
This episode is a collaboration with the Sun Valley Forum in Sun Valley, Idaho.
The Sun Valley Forum is an intergenerational meeting of forward-thinking professionals that come from a diverse range of disciplines.
These experts are on the cutting edge of what's happening in the fight for our future, and they've all come together at the Sun Valley Forum to share ideas and to collaborate on solutions for a greener tomorrow.
Let's get to the show.
Alrighty guys, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. Very excited to be here at the Sun Valley Forum 2023. It's our second year here. We're having a great time getting some great content, and I'm very excited to be sitting down with Emmy Scott, who is the Executive Director of Earth Guardians.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So why don't we just start with what is Earth Guardians?
Amazing. Yeah. So Earth Guardians is an international nonprofit. We work with youth worldwide to give them the tools, the resources, and the mentorship to become intersectional leaders in the crisis of climate change.
And how are you finding the youth that you're working with? Like, what is the process by which somebody who's interested in what you do can access some of the tools that you have for them to use?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So the heart of our organization is one of our programs that we call Crews. And our crews are made up of youth worldwide that choose to do on-the-ground projects that they want to do. And once they start a crew, then we provide them with the resources, virtual educational materials, virtual trainings where they're able to connect to our global network, as well as in-person trainings too, where we fly people from all over the world to the U.S. To get hands-on training as well. But it all starts with starting a crew.
Fantastic.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So how long has Earth Guardians been around?
Earth Guardians has been around, I believe it was incorporated in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we've been around for a while. But this recent transition that we've had, we've been going through our theory of change, right? And that this year we've been focused on truly walking our talk and putting people, our youth and our BIPOC folks, our Indigenous folks, those with visible and invisible disabilities in the center of the conversation, because that's what we've always preached that we've done, right? But we've actually been doing it in the last year or two, where 80% of our staff now is either women, BIPOC, or youth between the ages of 20 and 30.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved?
Yes. So when I was in college, I started a crew myself. I was a crew lead. I was on the ground in Greeley, Colorado, doing on-the-ground projects with my university and mobilizing my community. And then when I graduated, I have a degree in business management and environmental studies. And I was like, what will I do with these two things? Like,
how will I combine them?
Right. Yes. Like so opposite of each other. Right. And I actually saw an Instagram post where Earth Guardians was hiring an operations director. And I was like, hey, I have been a crew lead for 5 years. This could be an amazing opportunity. So I applied, I interviewed, because of my age and my lack of experience. They were hesitant at first, of course. And then just in the past year, I have been really able to prove myself because they've really given me the chance to do that. And then I got promoted to executive director.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what was your first project? What had you start a crew?
That's awesome. I never get asked that question, so thank you. My first project was something that they still do every year at my university too, and it's called Food for Thought. I was a hardcore vegan at that time when I started college, and Food for Thought is an event where we take cultural dishes, really traditional foods, and put a vegan twist on them to show people that there's alternatives without having to sacrifice, childhood experiences or the loves that we grew up with.
I love that. I love that because I so often preach that you can't have environmental solutions that are not embedded in the culture where you're working, right? It has to work culturally in order for it to be good for the planet, because otherwise you get zero adoption. And it feels like somebody's coming in and telling you, hey, we're changing how you live your lives, right?
Exactly.
Which means how you live your lives doesn't matter. And my way is better.
Right.
And that is just not a way to build friendships. It's a way to build enemies.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the really special thing about Earth Guardians, right? Is like I said, we provide mentorship and resources, but we never tell our youth or our crews what they have to do or what the right answer is, right? Like we give them best practices. And we support them through challenges that they have, but they're the ones choosing what's right for their community. Because like you said, if we came in and just said like, hey, we did this in our community and it works super well, now you should do it too. Not only is it might not be a long-term solution because you're not like embedded in the culture, like you said, so it might not last, but it's also, it gives off an elitist type of perspective, right? Of that I know better and you don't.
It just shuts people down immediately.
Yeah. It's a very, we don't like approaching environmentalists that way, right? Because it's also not one size fits all either to the climate crisis. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and everybody has like so many ideas, especially young people who aren't like working in this world yet, who haven't like heard like, okay, these are the potential solutions and these are the only options. Like they still have so many ideas and like constantly thinking of like, okay, well, this isn't working. So, oh, well, maybe this would be something cool to try. And maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, but it's still something good to try.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. One of my favorite projects that one of our crews did, that I would have never thought of this. They collected plastic from like just off the street, right? They did a big cleanup with their community, collected a bunch of plastic, and then took that plastic and made clothing, and then hosted a fashion show down
very cool
down a street. Yeah, just out in the open where like everybody could. It was just like this impromptu fashion show.
That's super cool.
Isn't it so cool? And I'm just like, wow, yeah. Like you said, after you get told no so many times in life, you start getting like a barrier or biased opinion about what solutions could look like. And our youth don't have that yet. So they are very creative in their solutions.
When we do youth programming, like direct 3rd through 5th grade student educational opportunities in schools, I love building in a lot of time for just like, go. Like come up with it and then build it. Like here's all of these craft supplies. I want you to build me a model because like you said, they're not inhibited by, they're not jaded in the same way that even I think when you start getting to college, you start seeing like, I've been shut down in these ways. And so giving kids the opportunity to just like let their minds explode with it is so much fun to watch. And it comes up with such cool solutions too.
It does, right. It does. And you start finding innovative ways to create solutions, right? And I love that piece about college because when I was a freshman, I came in ready to change everything. I was like, change this, change that, and got a lot of no's, got a lot of harsh reality. And so now when I meet youth that have like that same energy, I try to really like harness it and let them know like reality is that you're going to be told no, but don't let that discourage you.
Yeah. Like keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of being told no a lot, which I know that we have experienced plenty of that, and I know you have as well. How do you what is your personal strategy response to that, to like maintaining your hope in the face of being shut down or feeling like it's a problem that's too big to be solved?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question as well. I love this. So how I personally deal with no's, right? I was told by one of my mentors in college that when you get one no, or if one door seems to be closing, it actually might be opening up many, many more doors from there, right? So personally, for one, I don't really take no for an answer.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, you can tell me no all you want. I'm still going to ask again and again. But there is like something to it too, right? Where if you're being told no from one sector, that maybe focusing your energy somewhere else too is valuable. And I think another great thing about Earth Guardians is that we create this global community. And so you really don't know where opportunities are going to come from. They come from the most random places. And so I'm also just very open to things, right? Like I have people, when I'm at conferences like this, they'll approach us and it'll be such a casual conversation like how we've been having. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second. I think we can partner. I think we could do something together. So I just try to look for opportunity even in like the smallest places. And then that piece that you said about how to deal with, because climate change is such a big problem, right? And it can make us feel very small or like we're not doing enough. So I always like to remind people, especially my youth, that we're like drops of water. All of us individually, we're like drops of water. And when we fall into a pond, we create a ripple effect that can then influence all the other drops of water. So you might feel like your action is small, or you might feel like when you got told no, that is the end, or that you didn't achieve anything. But even just trying for that opportunity could have created a ripple effect that will, eventually lead to something. So I always tell people, even the smallest actions are meaningful. Even if they don't work out, it's still meaningful that you tried.
Love that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And when Chance and I first started the nonprofit, I remember one of the stories we still talk about today, 5
Literally,
years
we
later.
talk about it today.
Like yesterday or something, is we were partnering with an organization, and they were just talking about us like, so like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to achieve this? Why do you want to start your own business instead of doing something else? And we had this conversation. They were like, well, good luck with that. Like, they did not see this working. And luckily we didn't stop, and we just kept going, and it's all worked out. And now we think about that and we're like, haha.
It was definitely like they weren't shutting us down, but it was like a head pat, like, good for you.
Very cute.
Yeah, it'll be adorable if you make it happen. And it was like, cool. Well, that makes me feel great. But it's definitely, it's almost immediately after that experience with them that things started really picking up for the nonprofit for us. It's almost this like cosmic balance thing of like, hey, you're being told no here because if you moved out there, you're going to miss this massive opportunity we have in place for you over here. And it's definitely something we reflect on a lot to just keep our spirits up.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I love that piece that you just said, right? It was almost like a motivating factor. It was a catalyst for you guys to be like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah. I'm definitely one of those people. It's like, if you tell me no, I'm going to be like, all right, well, now I have to prove you wrong.
Yes.
So.
And I love that. I feel like a lot of people like in our like generation are like that, right? When we get told no, we're like, okay, well, we'll find another way to do it then.
Just going to do it without you.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't need you. Right. And that's what we tell our youth all the time. Like, because a lot of them do policy work too at such a young age. Of course, they get a lot of pats on the head of very cute, for trying to be involved in politics. So cute. And so I tell them all the time, like, don't wait for political leaders to do what they're supposed to. Start doing it for them, and just take the opportunity. Don't wait for a seat at the table. Create your own table. Yeah. Create your own opportunities.
I love that.
So getting back a little bit more to Earth Guardians and your work, what are some of the big challenges you have as an organization? Like, what are the blocks that we're trying to solve so we can grow you further?
Yes. So one of the biggest challenges, right, of most nonprofits is funding.
It's in the name, right?
It's nonprofit, right? Yeah. And I think that is one of our biggest challenges, right, is getting large support and that meaningful support, right? Because we have our community members who donate to us, and that's absolutely wonderful. But I think where we're really needing impactful funding is from like large corporations, large family funds, foundations, investors, people who believe in our work. And I got told once from an investor that she was like, "You're in the business of burning money." And
jeez,
yeah, right.
What a quote! Wow.
Yeah, it is. It's such a quote, right? And I told her my response to that was, "Well, we're in the business of burning money, but you're in the business of letting the earth burn." Boom. So I'm like, yeah. So it's hard, right, in the nonprofit field to show investors who want a number impact that even our indirect impact is important. Yeah. That the social impact that we have is extremely important. But so I think that's one of our biggest problems, right, is being able to get our story and our message out there in a way that feels meaningful to us and doesn't diminish our story with numbers, right? Because the numbers are important. Investors want to know the numbers, but trying to find that fine balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have to imagine that, so kind of the most beautiful thing about Earth Guardians is how decentralized it is, right? Yes. You're local everywhere. You're doing boots on the ground projects all over. but that also makes it really hard to attract, there's not the focus of like, our goal is this single project. And then you bring in industry professionals that are somehow attached to or related to that problem, and they want to give money to help solve that problem, right? So that's definitely a challenge to overcome. But there are some unifying things, right? Like lifting up female or BIPOC or youth voices. That is definitely a central theme for what you're doing. And there's tons of companies that have that as part of their company culture that should be funding you guys.
Yeah. So if you guys are out there and listening,
you happen to have a checkbook. Yeah, very much so.
So what brought you out to the Sun Valley Forum, and what are some of the things you've heard over this week that you're taking back with you?
I love that. Yeah. So I was honored to be invited to the Sun Valley Forum. This is my first year here at this conference. And Vic Barrett, who is a plaintiff with Youth versus the Government, he has a very close connection with Earth Guardians. He's been working with Earth Guardians since he was like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
So it's been, like 10 years or so. And he's actually he connected me to this forum, right? And when I got in touch with the main organizer, we had a phone call with each other just to like talk about how Earth Guardians could fit into this forum. And me and Amy we kicked it off right away. We were on the phone with each other, and I believe I told her a story about how I got into the environmental work, which was like through my grandpa, who was really connected with nature. He wasn't an activist of any sort, just a man that loved nature. Yeah, a man that would, put on his hat and go walk. Even to this day, goes walking every single morning just to like look at the birds and touch the trees. And so I was telling her that story, and we related with each other instantly. And after that, I think my goal for this forum became giving voice to our generation, right? Giving a space here where a lot of people are more seasoned youth. They have a lot of experience that a lot of our youth don't have, and even I don't have yet. And so my goal with this forum is really bringing that fresh perspective that our youth have and mixing it with the experience, right? That fine line again of, here's our truth and our story, but we need to be able to figure out how to navigate that story in a space of investors, of, people that are here at this forum, these amazing, amazing people that have so much experience in their fields.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, because we're recording this on kind of the last day of the forum here. And so I've gotten to hang out with you a couple of times over the past week. And I definitely, just in kind of watching how you've been interacting with other members here at the forum, I can see you sort of bringing the younger members of the forum together and then integrating us into the conversations that are being had. Like, I see you doing that just as a person with your social connections. And so to hear you say that as that was your goal for the forum, A+. I think you did a great job of that.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Thank you. Right? Because I'm not even doing it super intentionally, but it is like when we're in spaces like this, right? Like it does kind of just happen naturally, where we all start to kind of come together. We're like, hey, yeah, I see you.
I know what your life is.
Right. We understand each other. Shall we talk about, these things? And then, I think I have a really unique perspective because I grew up with my grandparents. And so intergenerational conversations are extremely normal for me. Whereas like a lot of people my age may have never sat down with somebody in like the baby boomer generation and had conversations with them, right? And that kind of comes natural to me. Like I see our differences, obviously, like there is tons of generational differences. But I do have a lot of intergenerational conversations. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Crushing it.
Thank you.
So as someone who has a background and degrees in business and environment, right? I imagine, and it seems like just from having conversations with you and seeing you have conversations with other people, you're pretty well versed and you understand pretty well these kind of more like high up there business conversations that some of the people are having here, which for myself and Chance, we're like,
it's another language.
Yes.
I have no clue what you're saying. I went to a meeting the other day and I was like, cool. And I was like, I don't know what we're talking about here. I don't feel like I can contribute, or like, will I be saying the wrong ththings or something like that? So how do you think we because I think there's lots of people who want to help and who want to learn more, but are kind of in the same boat, right? Don't have a business degree or don't understand, especially like the investor talk and the finance talk that we're having here. So how do you think we make that more accessible and like get more people in the room talking about it instead of being like us and being like, I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm just going to leave.
Right. You guys ask amazing questions.
Oh, thank you.
Like, it's so awesome. Yes. So like you said, like a lot of the conversations happening here have been jargon, right? They talk in acronyms. In the business world, everything's an acronym, which makes it really difficult to understand what's happening because you hear, this 3-syllable word or whatever, and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think one of my goals, because I was honored to be asked to be on the cabinet next year to help with planning.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's such an honor. And so one of my goals, I think, for next year is going to be, not that I think, I know, my goal is going to be breaking that barrier down, right? Of like, if we're going to be having these conversations, and we talked about it in a few of our sessions, when we have these conversations, we need to be meeting people where they're at in life and not assuming that they have the same knowledge we have, right? I've talked about this a few times, but a true statistic, if we take our global knowledge, globally, we are at an average of a 3rd grade reading level. And a lot of these conferences, it's like if you put a 3rd grader in this room, like they would be so confused, right?
They would just be running around because nothing would capture their attention.
Exactly, right? So I tell people all the time, like when you present, when you talk, a 3rd grader should be able to understand the concepts that you're putting out there. And if they don't, then we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to explain this better. Because, yeah.
It's one of those things where jargon is really useful for talking to people that are within your field, right? Mm-hmm. Because it very concisely conveys very complex ideas in just a few words.
Right.
However, you have to unpack that when you're not working with industry professionals. And I think especially when you put 4 of them on stage in a moderated conversation with each other, they're all professionals, right? And so they're talking to each other. And sometimes it gets lost that you're doing that in front of an audience that would love to follow the conversation. And I don't want to like throw shade on what's happening here at the Sun Valley Forum, because I think that most of what I have seen has been incredibly accessible and incredibly important conversations. And there are a lot of industry professionals both on stage and in the audience, right? So there's definitely a huge percentage of the audience here that is following every single word that's being said. But we're trying to blend 2 worlds here, right? We're trying to have these sort of environmentally focused people and these financial focused people and bringing them together in a way that is mutually beneficial. And so there's definitely, I almost want to, how you have like a deaf interpreter on the side of the stage. If we could have a financial interpreter on the side of the stage, like ROI, that means return on investment.
I love that. That's a good idea. Like funny. A little a key term.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good idea.
It's like, how do you make it accessible for both parties, right? Because you have people in the audience listening, like Chance said, who know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly right.
And you have people in the audience who are just lost, depending on what the conversation is. So it's like, how do you meet them in the middle? Because you don't want to bring it down far enough the people who are professionals who want to be like hearing what you're doing and learning more about the specific topic. You don't want them to feel bored and be like, why are you talking to me like I'm a 3rd grader, right?
Exactly.
Right. No, totally, right. And I think there is something to like when you give general knowledge, right? Doing it at a 3rd grade level, like it's not like, hi, sweetie, or like, this is what I'm going to explain to you now. Like you can still, like the way I talk to children is the way I'm talking to you guys right now, right? Because, they're just little adults, like, they understand concepts way more than we
give them credit
they do.
For.
Yeah. And so and adults, like, we're just giant kids too, right? So
I know I am.
Right, I am too, right? So I kind of, I think like you said, like with that barrier, I think there's just something to like breaking down the words, right? Of like, hey, we know that a lot of people might know this acronym, but even if there was just something off to the side that was like, here's the breakdown of the word, so then like you could go and do your own research on the word later, would be extremely helpful. So there is, again, another fine line, right, between like talking down to somebody and then keeping it simple. I think those two things are completely different from one another. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is such a big conversation that Chance and I talk about like all the time. We're always like, how do you make it more accessible to everyone? I mean, yeah. Anyway, it's a conversation we could have for hours, for days, for like ever.
And it's a full-time job for at least two people, you know, right? Like that's what the whole podcast is about. Is like trying to make stuff accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
But going back to Earth Guardians once again, how can people get involved with Earth Guardians and kind of follow in your footsteps?
Oh, follow my footsteps. That's very sweet, but I'm not like that. I'm like, walk next to me, don't follow me. Like, let's walk together.
Yeah.
But how people can get involved, for one, if you're a youth or you know a youth, you can start a crew. You can go to earthguardians.org, put in your email address, and you will get tons and tons of emails after that of how to start a crew and to get into our virtual meetings and all that kind of stuff. So for our youth, definitely starting on the ground projects. And even as an adult, I tell them all the time, they're like, hey, I want to start a crew, but I'm not a youth. So we call those our seasoned youth. And our seasoned youth can also get involved by mobilizing youth in their communities to start crews, right? Because it's all intergenerational work. Another way people can get involved is by donating, supporting. You can have direct impact by just giving us, a few dollars. I tell people, I'm like, if you spend $5 a week on coffee, and you just instead gave Earth Guardians that $5, we could plant 7,000 trees in Brazil again.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference, right?
Absolutely.
Every bit counts. So those are the two main ways that people can get involved, is by starting crews, or donating, to create an impact. Because I know not everybody always has the capacity to do on the ground work.
Right.
So I tell people, if you don't have the capacity on the ground work, that's totally fine, because there are people doing the work. We just need the support to help them with the resources, right?
For sure. So what is your website so we can direct people there?
Yes, it's www.earthguardians.org.
Perfect. So if you guys have an idea, you want to start a crew, or you just want to learn more, or you want to donate, scrolling down to the show notes, I'm going to drop that link right there so you guys can go straight from listening to having an impact.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, and I hope you have a wonderful whitewater rafting experience this afternoon.
Thank you.
In the 34-degree water, which I will not be in.
And I'm sure we'll be seeing you again.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
If you've got a minute to spare, leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts helps other conservation-minded people find the show. We'd really appreciate it.
A big thanks to everyone working to protect our planet, and a big thanks to you for listening. See you next time.